And so really honored to have Terrance up here with us. And Terrance, if you'll stand right over here. And he got me a short and a long bio, and I'm going to read the longer one right here for him because I don't want to leave anything out. And so keep in mind now that we're down, closer to Louisiana and Texas. And Terrance and his wife, Marcia, brought their 2 kids up here, came a long way. And we're glad to have him up here. And let me tell you a little bit about this man standing here by us. He's a native Texan who's an avid outdoorsman and conservationist, and that is an understatement, I'd say. He enjoys hunting, fishing, foraging, and things outdoors. He began hunting at the early age and developed a great passion for turkey hunting. After years of hard hunting for the elusive wild turkey in East Texas and learning of the declining numbers, Terrance got involved with the National Wildlife Turkey Federation in 2007-2008, wanting to make a difference. In 2009, Terrance became the president of the Harris County Wildlife Group of National Wild Turkey Federation, formerly known as the Tom Balls Toms. Man, I'm just now reading this, folks, so if you put something in there, I mean, it's going out. And began to spearhead initiatives to educate other outdoorsmen and women on declining wild turkey numbers in East Texas and the importance of habitat management, predator control to improve habitat for turkeys and other wildlife as well. And that's one thing a lot of people that may not understand about hunting is we don't love killing animals. If we did, we'd all get a job at probably a chicken slaughterhouse and kill one of them 11 million chickens that get killed every day. And so the conservationists and the people that love the wildlife are the ones that do the things for it and put money down to preserve it, and it helps all wildlife, not just the turkeys. And so in 2011, he became aware of decline in hunter recruitment, and Terrance and Harris County Wildlife Group Committee began to focus on youth outreach to get more young people and their families involved in hunting and the outdoors and preserving wildlife, and they began hosting youth events, including youth turkey and hog hunts. And wildlife management educators and trapping events to generate and reignite their eastern wild turkey restoration programs. And Terrance quickly became a driving force in the initiative. He actively engaged young people by organizing turkey release events where they're reestablishing turkeys where they've been missing from for years, collaborating with wildlife management areas and trappers to educate them on predator control strategies and facilitate live demonstrations of prescribed burns that led to the TPWD wildlife biologists to showcase habitat improvement techniques. So burning is a big part of it too. And so by 2019, Terrance and founded the North Natchez Turkey Co-op, a conservation alliance now engaging approximately 24,000 acres of land owned by cooperating landowners, united by a shared mission to embrace native habitat for wild turkeys. The co-op has not only contributed to population recovery, but also uncovered a significant number, here we go, of Ozark Chinquapin trees. This discovery has sparked growing interest among local landowners in restoring native Chainquapin trees, a valuable food source for eastern wild turkeys across the East Texas region. Today, Terrance continues to work with landowners as a chairperson of North Natchez Turkey Co-op. He served on the Upland Game Bird Committee and with Parks and Wildlife in Texas. He's a board member of the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation, and he's in full ministry as a leading Christ Forgiveness Ministry of Houston, Texas. So I want to need to give a good warm applause for Mr. Terrance being here today. We're going to turn it over to you. Here's the microphone. You just have to hold it closer.
All right. Thank you, Steve. My wife sent that through a chat GPT, so I guess I should have read I should have checked that techie stuff. That's her gift. So as Steve was saying, and this is some of the pictures from the Texas treatment you may have seen, on a visit when Steve came. So that's one of the larger ones that was found that they've been working with.
It's a little bit of a delay.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right, so as he was saying, I'm a hunter, been hunting for a long time, love turkey hunting. That's my thing that I've been doing. So I wanted to share a few pictures up there. Even drag my wife out there, managed to drag her out there and harvest the bird. But like I said, we've been hunting and stuff for years, turkey hunting. I love all types of hunting. But you know, as hunters, we're also, like Steve was saying, we focus on conservation. We don't want to just go out there and kill up at everything. You want to manage your populations of wildlife. But me as a hunter, it was always just the experience and the joy of being in the outdoors, and also, you know, some people like to go to grocery stores and put meat on the table. I like to go to the woods and put meat on the table, or organic meat. So that was one of the things. Been doing it for many years. So, let's see. But as Steve was saying, getting into hunting, you know, when basically I was hunting for all of these years in East Texas. I'm going to get into some of the methods in East Texas. We have pretty much a different population. We have two types of turkeys in East Texas. I mean, in Texas in general. So we have a Rio Grande turkey. As I was just telling one of the guys outside, we have the Rio Grande turkey is more numerous game bird species in Texas than any of the other states. Like you go to Oklahoma, Kansas, and even places like Hawaii, they got that subspecies of turkeys. And most of those places where you go to hunt Rios, they trap those birds out of Texas, out of central Texas, because that was one of the strongholds at the turn of the century. East Texas, on the other hand, at the turn of the century, doing settlement, you had a lot of people settling in East Texas. It was more people as they settled. Most people hunted back then for food. And so those numbers in East Texas, the eastern turkey, those numbers declined. And so at the turn of the century, we barely had any turkeys left in East Texas. And so that was across most of the state. And so what Parks and Wildlife started to do in the early 1970s, 1980s, they started trying to reestablish those eastern turkey populations in East Texas. When most of you hear turkeys, you're probably just thinking, well, a turkey is a turkey, but it's really just like we was talking about how with the Chainquapins, it's a different diversity of trees in the South. They grow different. Steve will explain later how they'll sprout in the fall, the southern Chainquapins, as opposed to those in the Ozarks up in the north. Then they'll sprout later, like after a cold winter. So with the turkeys, I was just explaining to someone outdoors, East Texas, that's a different subspecies of the same bird, wild turkey, but it can only survive in that climate of East Texas, where we get a certain percentage of rainfall, where it's hardwood bottoms, pine forest, as opposed to the Rio Grande, where it's more of an open country turkey. So we was trying to get those turkeys reestablished, and basically I got involved with the National Wild Turkey Federation, as Steve was saying, and basically ended up ultimately leading that chapter for so many years because it was some hard hunting going out there trying to find a turkey in East Texas. Going to get into some of the methods of what they initially did in East Texas, when they were basically trying to release those Rio Grande turkeys once upon a time in East Texas to get a population back into East Texas. But that didn't work because they can't, Rio Grande turkey can't survive in a wet climate or reproduce like that in such a wet climate as opposed to an eastern. So after all these methods, failed methods that they tried, they did something called block stocking. And so ultimately they would release 3 to 4 tons in a particular area and 15 to 20 hens. Well, East Texas, there's a lot of country folks out there, and so it's some people out there where I see a turkey, you know, and so you know, they ain't looking at the laws or regulations and stuff, but it's not a season. I see a turkey, and so if those 3 tons were to get harvested or shot or poached or something like that, or the predators get them where there's no reproduction happening. And so that's what happened over the years in East Texas, and why the numbers were low in so many areas. We had a few places where that block stocking was successful in some of the national forests in extreme East Texas, a couple of counties up in Northeast Texas, and those are the areas where we still had seasons. So when I got into turkey hunting, those are the areas that I was going to hunt turkeys, but it was hard to hunt because the numbers were so low, which is one of the reasons that I got involved, especially after I found out that, you know, it was once upon a time a population of this species in the region where I grew up in East Texas, as opposed to West Texas. So I worked and got involved in these organizations to try to help, and around the time that I got involved, Texas Parks and Wildlife had reevaluated the stocking methods, what they was doing previously in previous years. And so going across and working in partnership with other states, they basically saw what was working in other states. And so they switched to a method called super stocking. And in that method, they went to something where they would basically release 20 tons in an area and something like 60 hens or more. And so if a predator got some of the birds, if a poacher got some of the birds, you still had the possibility of more birds reproducing. And so those populations acted as, you know, what they found is some of those populations showed up as something where it's been an existing populations, and there was some recruitment, there was some more successful hatches, successful raising of brood in some of these areas. And then they also reevaluated the habitat. So that's what we'll get into next, talking about habitat. Because for those of you that are turkey hunters, you know that turkey is a large bird. And so if the habitat isn't managed and it grows up just wild, the forest in East Texas and most of the Southeast is a lot different from what it used to be. And so most of our forests, if they're not managed and maintained, you got all of the thick underbrush, you got all of the stuff that just kind of grows up because everything has been logged once upon a time. So we don't have all of the old ancient forests like we had once upon a time. See if this changes.
Terrance, I had to move back that sensor to pick it up. If you stand there and try to advance it, it'll do it, I think. I had the same problem.
Okay.
That's why
All
that's why I moved it closer.
Okay. All right. And so basically with this new method, because we're working towards Chainquapins and my introduction to them, but so with this new method, we're looking at how to protect these birds, because the state would spend quite a bit of funds, from hundreds of dollars spent on license and stuff like that, and Pittman Robertson funds to trap these birds in partnerships with other states. We've trapped them in Missouri, Central Texas, we've trapped them in Alabama, Mississippi, a lot of places in the Southeast to trap these birds. So in order to protect these birds, Texas Parks and Wildlife started working in partnership with landowners, private landowners, and also Forest Service, but places where it was large, vast areas where they could release these birds and they would have some kind of protection, whether it was closed seasons or people that would look out or manage habitat for the birds. And so the requirement came where it was 10,000 contiguous acres of land minimum to release birds into East Texas. And so this is one of the places in Anderson County where this is from a co-op that's a friend of mine. He's into Chainquapins as well. He's familiar with them. And so I connected him with Parks and Wildlife, and he established this co-op, and they had birds released in 2017. So as I'm working with him and getting him through the right contacts to establish a co-op, I'm also working on the eastern side of that county, a little bit further east, and over to the next county that also assemble a co-op. And so we're working on habitat in this acreage. And so we're working on things like getting the habitat ready for birds. And so, as I was saying, you're clearing out things like underbrush, all of the yoke pine. You got invasives, you got like the privet hedge and stuff that grows in the forest, and it grows so thick. And so it's just a perfect ambush site where a bobcat or a coyote can ambush wild turkeys. And so if there's things that's being done to make the habitat conducive for wild turkey. And so these pictures are from some of the properties. So we basically went in, did done some people do herbicide treatment, some go in there, have people to come in and mulch, but the state and the National Wild Turkey Federation made funds available for landowners to go in and do projects. That was to help motivate those to work on these areas, because our area, and it's an area to the north along the Nature's River, is like a priority area where they was basically making sure funds was available to the landowners that wanted to work on their habitat for wild turkeys, other game, deer, even quail, because on some of the places where we done release sites, one of the wildlife management areas, they've also been maintaining, they've started to see quail out there in this area. In parts of East Texas, it's so thick, you haven't seen quail in years. And so the wild game, wild game practices like clearing, thinning, and burning, predator control. This is my buddy Keith. Steve met him. He's been the one that's helping us locate a lot of the trees in East Texas. And he comes to some of the events that we was hosting, and they would basically do some trapping demonstrations so the kids, the families, the people that weren't as experienced in the outdoors could come and learn this stuff hands-on. And so they would come out before each event, and this is an area where wild turkeys was released. This is called the Gus England Wildlife Management Area, where we took this picture. The state was working with this agency to release turkeys out there. And so they brought in trappers, and then we set an education event where we brought in Keith, and there's another guy, Don Hightower, there with the Texas Fur Trappers and Hunters Association in Texas. And so they came in to do demonstrations to teach even some of the landowners that was in our co-op management practices and things that they can implement to kind of maintain an out-of-control predator population. See, in this day and age, you don't have as many trappers as you did back in the day. You have people to trap and for furs and stuff like that. And so when those things were implemented, some of that was under control. Now, as a lot of areas are growing up, and there's a lot of people that's kind of getting out of that type of lifestyle, and so a lot of people, whether it be jobs or whatever, that causes them to have to relocate. It's not people that's trapping or doing all these things like they used to do back in the old days. So you have to come in and make the areas conducive. And so, because the coyotes, the bobcats, if ain't nobody hunting and trapping and thinning them out, you try to release some turkeys whenever you want to, you got this overabundance of predators, then, it's something to work against what you're doing. So this is why we was implementing these practices, but also as these practices were being implemented, then the state basically, and some of the other organizations, NWTF, Habitat Incentive Program funds were available to landowners that was implementing these practices. So a lot of these programs were also cost shares and stuff like that. But while going in to do some of these things, landowners also, we were trying to educate them on, because we also educated them on, or was talking to many of them of the importance of, mass trees, mass producing trees. And so, of course, go ahead.
5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so a lot of the oaks, Chainquapins, all of that kind of stuff, we basically was planting that stuff, but then a lot of when we started talking about Chainquapins, then the landowners became aware, or started to talk about the Chainquapins that they were coming across when they was growing up, and so they started telling us about their finding Chainquapin trees out on their properties, or they grew up and they knew about these trees or whatever growing up, or had once upon a time ate the nuts. So what we was talking about, this would be something that's a benefit with these mass trees. We want to establish Chainquapins back in East Texas. And so we talked to a lot of these landowners about what those Ozark Chinquapin was doing. And so basically, you got a lot of people that now they're trying to preserve what they're finding. Now they want to establish Chainquapins back in East Texas. This young woman here is my grandmother. when I started talking about Chainquapins and establishing Chainquapins in this area, then she started to express when she was growing up as a little girl, you know, that they used to go up the hill and pick the nuts off the trees up the hill in some of the sandy areas where she grew up in our area of East Texas. And she would tell me different stories about, you know, her growing up and how they would eat those nuts. She'd tell me stories of how, you know, some of the cousins, they play around with them and toss them at each other. And one of the cousins had a panic once upon a time when he stuck a nut up his nose and got it stuck and just kind of freaked him out. So she would just tell me different things, but just finding out the history and that these nuts were native to East Texas, then that also just kind of became one of our, just as we were trying to restore turkeys in this area, you know, we started also a focus on Chainquapin trees. And so many of these landowners, they share with us whatever, anything that they come across. So we work with different agencies. This is Keith. Well, that's Keith, like I was saying, the trapper. He's out there in the woods all the time. And so he's coming across a lot of these trees and whenever he's trapping. And so also he works within my co-op doing trapping for some of the landowners, you know, preparing this area for wild turkeys. And so they're always keeping their eyes out for Chainquapin trees. And so, you know, just some of the work that's been done. Some of these pictures of wild turkeys, you know, this is from just us doing the work before the release happened in the area where turkeys move into the area when you start focusing on habitat and focusing on things growing that's conducive to wild turkeys. This particular place where we're standing out there is a landowner. On this particular tree, property in Anderson County, we found at least 4 big trees, good sized trees, anywhere from 15 to 25 foot high, different circumferences or deviations on these trees, but there was a lot of sprouts and young trees all over this property, you know, and it was up in a higher sandy area. And so we went in this area and we started taking pollen to some of these trees. And I'm just going to skip through for the sake of time, but just really to show when Steve came down, we didn't go to some of the spots in the co-op, so he's going to come back. We've got other areas where we want to visit some trees within this co-op, but this is just from the tree trip when Steve came down and some of my contacts. This is Edwin, and we went to East Texas, and the tree that Steve was talking about with this huge circumference where they did some logging once upon a time, and then this thing grew back up from the roots. How big tree, was that 22? I believe that he said something like that was a big
tree. Somebody cut it for the log. It looks like those are blighted sprouts, but there's no blight on it. They cut that for log, and then so it copiced, and then it shot up those even size.
Yeah. But that base is massive at the bottom. It was huge. So that's one of the trees that, and this is on the Angelina. So basically, this is just one of those areas on one of the national forests out there. This is us bagging some trees on the landowner's place, one of the landowners in East Texas or whatever. I'm just scrolling through. But basically, some of these trees, we were swapping pollen to pollinate these trees, and we're just continuing to work on that as we work on turkeys, establishing turkeys and work on turkey habitat, really to introduce, you know, others to these trees and to educate them about wild turkeys and that habitat for our future generations. So this is just some of the stuff that we've done. But thank you guys.
Terrance, come over here, buddy. Oh, yeah. We have, let me borrow your microphone for you. Thank you. We have an award for you in the shape of Texas, and this man has been working tirelessly with his community, and I don't know if y'all get the little theme I'm trying to go with right here. Edwin and him, they both are knowledgeable about the outdoors. Everybody in here it is, but one person can make a big difference working with others. And Terrance, on behalf of the Ozark Chinquapin Foundation, all of us working here, we've got, he told me, he said, man, this plaque for Texas eating up enough wood, I can make 2 other plaques in. But anyhow, just as a token of thanks for all you're doing, so Terrance Jackson for outstanding work saving and restoring the Ozark Chinquapin tree, and August 23rd, 2025, and we're very proud to give you this award, and a huge thank you for doing that.